Hi, today I'm going to answer this. Basically, it's a vector problem in trig form. So the first thing I want to say is my background is in electrical engineering, and we represent this in such an easier, more concise way than math people do. The way we do this is we say the magnitude, which is 6, at an angle. Notice both of these are 190. So this is at an angle of 190 degrees. Excuse me. So that's Z1. And then Z2, its magnitude is 8, and it's at an angle of 130 degrees. Now, the way this works in polar notation, which is what we called this, if you are dividing like Z1 over Z2, you take the magnitudes and divide them, and you take the angles and subtract them. So this becomes 3/4, and then 190 minus 130 is at 60 degrees. And if you put it in trig form, it is 3/4 cosine of 60 plus I sine of 60. And it's just that quick. Here, if you're going to multiply them, you multiply the magnitudes and add the angles. So this is 6 at 190 times Z1 is 6 at 190. And this polar form only works if you're multiplying or dividing, but it is so quick and easy. 6 times 6 is 36. Multiply the magnitudes, add the angles. You get 380, but that's more than 360. So if you subtract 360, it's another equivalent or another coterminal angle is 20. And to put it in trigonometric form, that would be 36 times the cosine of 20 plus I times the sine of 20. Now, if you want to do it the slow and drawn out math way, let me show you that. So if we write each of these out or distribute the multiplier, the magnitude, this is 6 times the cosine of 190 plus 6I times the sine of 190. And let's do the one where we're doing Z1 times Z1. So then again, we have 6 times the cosine of 190 plus 6I times the sine of 190. So this is Z1 times Z1. So we're going to FOIL this. We're going to get 36, 6 times 6 times the cosine of 190 squared, right? Cosine times cosine. Then when we do these, we get 36I times the cosine of 190 times the sine of 190. Then when you do these, we get plus 36I times the cosine of 190 times the sine of 190. And then we add 36I squared times the sine of 190 times the sine of 190. So I squared is -1. So this becomes minus 36 times the sine of 190 times the sine of 190. So now if we put real parts with real parts and imaginary parts with imaginary parts, what we have is 36 times the cosine of 190 times the cosine of 190 minus, and there's our 36, the sine of 190 times the sine of 190. That's the real part. And then the imaginary part is 36 and 36 is 72i times the cosine of 190, sine of 190, plus, oh, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, they're the same term. Okay, now we come up here to this formula. If you have the cosine of A, so A is going to be 190, times the cosine of B, so B is going to be 190. If this is a minus, this becomes a plus. So then minus the sine of A times the sine of B, this piece right here becomes 36 times the cosine of A plus B, which makes this 380. That's 190 plus 190. And then our imaginary part here, this is the same thing as 36i times 2 times the cosine of 190 times the sine of 190. And this piece right here is 2 times the sine of 380. Or I'm sorry, it's not 2 times. It's just the sine of 380. Because the sine of 2x equals 2 times the cosine x times the sine x. Anyway, so now we have plus 36i times the sine of 380. And so in the math form, this is 36 times 380 minus 360. This is the cosine of 20 plus I times the sine of 20. And that was a ton of work when all you really had to do was back here, multiply the two magnitudes and add the two angles. That's all there is to it. To do the division, you have to make the bottom, you have to make the denominator real, which is an even more complicated process. But if you just remember, if you have A at an angle of alpha over B at an angle of beta, the answer, the magnitude is A divided by B, but it's at an angle of alpha minus beta. If you are multiplying A at alpha, B at beta, this answer is you multiply the magnitudes, so A times B, and the angle is alpha plus beta. And then you just turn those into a times b times the cosine of this angle plus I sine of this angle, or a divided by b times the cosine of this angle plus I sine of this angle. But if you really want to do it with math, it can be done.